Riley, welcome,
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
of course. Welcome everybody to a new episode of Como en Realidades.
Hey.
Today we're gonna be talking about a wonderful, wonderful subject that I've been looking up this couple months. It's about modeling and the fashion industry. Today we have an amazing guest. Her name is Riley.
Thank you.
She is a model, New Jersey and New York model. I had the pleasure to work with you one time,
Yeah.
and it was an incredible experience. And since then, I always had these questions about how did actually model works because I was the assistant of my friend who is a photographer, and he never explained to me like thoroughly how was the process of actually getting into modeling, the agency, everything that is related to the process of just taking a picture.
Yeah, of
If we
course.
put it in small words. So today I really wanted to introduce how actually the life, the essence of modeling is, how complicated it can be, or everything that your experience in general.
Yeah, of course.
First of all, I just would like you to give us a quick introduction. What is your name?
Sure.
What do you do? Who are you in
Okay.
general?
All right, I can do that. So my name is Riley Woodell. I am an editorial and runway model here in New York City. Technically, I'm based out of Jersey City. I always like to joke that we're like the sixth borough because, like, technically we're closer than Queens and Brooklyn,
Yes.
but we get a lot of shade. We get a lot of hate because we're not technically New York, but I love it. I feel like I'm always joking with my husband. We're like, we don't want to sell it too hard because we're like, we don't want it overpopulated.
To be honest, it's already overpopulated.
It's getting like really high traffic here lately. Like I've noticed a little bit of a change over the last year,
Okay.
but not in like a bad way. It's just nice to kind of be able to like step outside of the city and separate the two, but also be so close. So
It takes you like
you
15
know.
minutes maybe to get into the city, right?
Yeah, it's not far at all. Like if I'm coming into like World Trade Center from Exchange Place, it's literally a 5-minute train ride.
That's great.
I know to get here from my apartment, it was like 45 minutes. And to me, that's not bad when it comes to the standard of like New York transit. So not bad at all.
The only thing that I will say that is complicated is whenever you try to go out, and
Yeah.
you go until really late until the night.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. Yeah, because the PATH train only runs ever so often after a certain time
Exactly.
in the evening on the weekend. So, but enough about that. So I am an editorial and high fashion runway model. I do everything from like print shoots. I've done some commercial work to then also like high fashion runway. I've worked with some incredible designers like along the way. Do you have any like specific questions regarding specific designers
Yes.
or specific shows?
It was one of the questions that I wanted to go a little bit deep into the podcast. It was what were your favorite ones? Because
my
I'm
gosh.
myself, I am really clueless. Like
Yeah.
I don't have 0.01% of experience into the fashion industry,
That's okay.
but I'm
that's
learning
okay.
because I think that is super important into the American culture in general,
Yeah, I agree.
and specific here in New York where 85% of the things are related to fashion.
Related to fashion.
So it's something that even though I want to immerse myself into it, because I want to be part of the city, and I feel like I want to learn from you.
Yeah, of course,
Yeah.
of course. I think one of my favorite shows to date is actually one of the more recent shows that I've done. Probably back in September 2023, Alina Velez had her infamous mud show. And essentially, we walked the runway in like a big vat of mud. It was amazing. When they told us we were going to do it, it was actually during the rehearsal. And like my mind kind of moved into 1980s mud wrestling. I don't know if you're familiar,
Yes, a
but
little.
like, yeah. So I was like, okay, what is this going to look like? But then they told us, we want it to look like you've kind of broken out into like a fight, and it's not going to be like a physical punch each other fight.
It's just like wrestling.
Yeah, we're just like wrestling in the mud. And I wasn't really sure how that was going to play out, but it ended up being like this beautiful, I don't know, just choreographed symphony of people just kind of wallowing in the mud. But it was very on the cuff and very spur of the moment. It definitely wasn't choreographed beforehand. So that was another beautiful part of it.
I was literally going to ask that. That's
it wasn't,
crazy.
It literally was not. So yeah, we had this big rectangle of dirt that had been sprayed with water, and it was kind of muddy. And it got muddier as time went on, at least from my perspective. I feel like when I walked it, it was somewhat muddy, but by the time we actually were dragging each other, through it,
That was
a lot of
super
people had
cool.
walked it. Yeah. But it was super cool. And I woke up the next morning and like I was on the cover of WWD Women's Wear Daily, and
Wow.
it just felt like a very like prolific part of my career, and I felt very proud to be part of it. So that's probably one of my favorite shows.
When was this?
This was just this past September
Oh,
2023.
really?
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. So really recent, but an amazing show. She's a very talented designer, and yeah, I felt very privileged to be part of that body of work. I really did.
It sounds super crazy how the idea of or just a concept it turns it in actually to be something as spectacular that the models wore the stars. I mean, you have to be like it's like acting in some sort of way. You cannot
It
have to
is.
blend into the what the photographer wants, and have to do all this craziness
Yep.
movements.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's something really stunning. When I work with you, of course, with Dalton, I work a
An amazing
couple.
shoot, by the way.
That was
That was such a fun shoot.
that
Like
was
I was
crazy.
very, very
With
proud
the
of that
bird
body
and
work.
everything. I'm gonna leave a couple of pictures. I always leave because the video I do the
Please
transition.
do. Please
I'm
do.
gonna leave a couple like of small videos that I captured those days. But we did one with a
We
bird
did.
and
With a crow suspended on, what did we have
it was like
suspended
a
on?
fishing line.
A fishing line. Yeah. Yeah,
and,
yeah, yeah.
and it was amazing. It
was-
ended up being
It was
super
almost
cool.
like we had it rigged up very puppeteer-esque. You were on a ladder holding it. It was really cool.
It was really cool. And then I remember the one with the pigeon that it opened up with all the cigarettes.
Yeah. Do you know, so in black and white, because the majority of the photos, actually all of the photos were in black and white, I did have a couple people ask me, like, is that a real pigeon
Oh, really?
in the image? And I was like, no, it's a clutch. It opens up. But yeah.
It was crazy the way that they got filled with cigarettes. That was a touch that nobody. I didn't expect. I would expect to be filled with another thing, but cigarettes. It was like
It was
something
iconic.
iconic. Really.
Whose idea was it to put the cigarettes? Do you
I
remember?
think it was the guy who had the one of the designers.
Yeah. Okay.
The assistant one.
Okay. Was it the stylist?
I think so.
Yeah,
His name is
Walter.
Alex, I believe.
Oh, Alex.
Alex,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Got you.
I'm gonna leave his Instagram right here. He's actually very cool.
Yeah.
I can
yeah.
follow him since
They're
that
all
day.
so
They're
talented.
really awesome.
They're really, really talented people. Everybody who worked on that shoot is just really good.
The makeup artist also. I follow her on her Instagram.
She's amazing.
She's amazing.
Like
She's
really
great.
talented. It was funny when I was talking with her at the shoot. She was like, "Oh yeah, I do makeup on shoots sometimes," and I was like, "Oh, it's cool." And then she showed me her Instagram, and I'm like,
No.
"This is like the cover of Vogue, my girl. Like you don't do shoots sometimes. You do shoots."
I was planning. I was talking to Delton about the idea of making an interview with her too.
You should.
The problem is, he told me that her English is a little complicated to understand. But I wouldn't care. I just wanted to listen to her
It
the stories
makes
that
it
she has.
more authentic, more
Okay.
wholesome, and more genuine.
More
I
genuine.
feel.
I
Yeah.
would think I will consider that.
Yeah. You could always, I don't know if you have like an extra phone or an iPad or a device, like a laptop, where you could just type in what you're trying to say and you
Oh,
guys
and
just
translate
spin
it?
it back and forth.
That would be a great idea. I was thinking actually to tell because I think she's from Ukraine
I think so. Yeah.
and get a person who can translate me. That idea is a little more expensive, but I will think it through. I think yours is a little bit better.
The option I'm presenting is free. So
Yes.
I'm just saying.
Something that I wanted to ask is all those magazines that you have been and all these shoots that you have been. Do you remember how was your first one, or when was it?
Oh gosh, when was my first one? That is a really good question, and it's going to sound really pretentious, but I've done so many that at this point I'm not really even sure which one was my first one. So I started modeling. Let's just go back in the history of
That would be awesome.
of me
Yeah.
modeling. Yeah. So I started modeling around the age of like 15, 16, which is pretty young, but also I would say like not uncommon in the fashion industry. People get scouted when they're younger for really unique facial features. There's a few agencies I know of that scout in places like Union Square Park, where we are today, who just look
Really?
for unique faces.
They're just
Yeah.
going around the park and be like,
Just walk around. Yeah, it's just like scouts that work for agencies. But in my case, I was around 15, 16, and I had enough friends who had, and these are people, like, mind you, who know nothing about fashion, but they, maybe I shouldn't say that. That sounds terrible. they don't know about like the actual modeling side of the industry.
Okay,
but
I got
the
you.
people who were like, you're tall, you're this, you're that. Like, have you ever looked into it? And delusion is a pretty powerful thing. Like, enough people had said it to me where I started to believe it. And I was like, let's just try. Let's just go for it.
It got into your mind.
Yeah. So I had submitted to a few agencies, and initially I didn't really hear anything back. And sometimes it goes that way. You know, like, you don't really tend to get feedback from agencies. So there's not really an explanation of why they did or didn't choose you, which is also okay, because sometimes
It's better that way.
better that way, so
Yeah.
you don't get in your head about like things you might not be able to change about yourself. So
Rejection at that time, I feel, is
Yeah.
it's complicated with
oh my
self-esteem.
gosh,
And
yeah,
stuff.
and you're so young, like you're just a few years out of middle school when you're like 15, 16, you know, so like you're still kind of like growing into yourself, and we always are in a way, but especially then.
Yes.
But let's see, so when I think I was like 16 on the dot, there was a company called AMTC, and it's actually a Christian organization.
Okay.
So my parents growing up, my dad was a pastor, and my mom was a pastor's wife, you know, and so we were kind of like immersed in that kind of culture, and that is a part of like my upbringing and being raised up. That it's like it's part of how I've been shaped as a human being.
Correct.
And so I'm trying to figure out how exactly to explain it, because I feel like I'm missing a key word of actually painting the proper picture, but it's called AMTC, and it's Actors, Models, and Talent for Christ. And actually, at one point, yeah, Megan Fox was part of AMTC. Yeah. So it has had some like really cool, well-known celebrities. She's like the only one off the top of my head that I can remember at this time. But anyway, she came through AMTC, and they were coming to our area, scouting people to be part of the program. And I just thought, you know what, let's just try it. Like, enough people have told me, let's just go for it and try it out. So I went for acting and for modeling. And their job is to kind of like shape you as a creative. And so they do everything from like getting your headshots in line, getting like an actor's reel together for you, whatever like you're interested in. If it's modeling, they try to help you build a portfolio that's geared towards either commercial, which is more like smiley, happy, you know, like Colgate commercials, like things like that.
Yeah, but it was more
This
like
is- yeah.
a school or like a program where you can learn.
Yeah, so it's a program where essentially they scout you, and
They give you the tools.
they give you the tools essentially to be successful in the industry. But they're based out of, they have numerous hubs. There's like one in LA, there was one in Atlanta, Georgia at the time. And that actually was the closest one to us, because originally I'm from North Carolina. So
I was
I'm
going
from
to
down
ask
south.
it.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome.
So not a super close drive though. Like, I want to say from where we lived, Atlanta was close to like a 10-hour drive. But yeah, it was pretty far. But it's one of those things where when you're young and you really want to try something, and your parents are, you know, proud of you and supportive, they're like, let's just try.
I was literally going to say that your parents, they
Yeah.
really have to see a future, like, or really have to see how happy you were for getting that into your idea. You
No,
know?
they really were. And I think a lot of it comes from the fact that with my dad being a pastor, he was very immersed in like the culture of like music and like teaching and just learning as like a unit, sort of, you know. And then
Okay.
my mom, she was in a band when she was younger, and they toured. Like, she
That's
was really
amazing.
cool. I know. My mom honestly is like what I aspire to be. She's so cool. But she was on tour up until she was around like 29, 30-ish, and then she decided like, let's try something new. So she kind of went back to just doing, I guess what I would say, like a more normal lifestyle,
Yeah, like
you know,
setting
not being
things
on the
up.
road. Yeah. And so because of that, because they both kind of had a background where they had some understanding, they were very encouraging to me, honestly. They were like, let's just try. You
Yeah,
know?
they see future into you, because your mom being in a band, of course, she had a starting point as well.
She did. She
So,
really did. Yeah.
You know, you never know until how far you can go until you try.
It's true. Yeah.
So that's amazing of your parents to help you to
So
go.
they were really supportive, and since Atlanta was the closest hub to us, so they came to Raleigh where we lived, and I auditioned, and they accepted me, and they were like, we feel like you have potential, let's try. So you have a few different times where you go down to Atlanta, and during that time it's kind of like balls to the wall, I guess, so to speak, where it's like, let's make sure we get all of your headshots, let's make sure we get a reel, let's like put you in some improv classes, like just to give you groundwork to be successful. And that actually, in a way, opened a lot of doors for me, because moving into, I guess, my junior and senior year of high school, I got really interested in theater. So I was like, let's try the musicals, you know, while I'm in school, things like that. So I kind of I kind of like grew into my own in a way. And we actually, I think my junior year, I was part of Wizard of Oz. And the individual who directed all of our shows, he was extremely talented. He went to Juilliard.
Wow.
He was the dance coach for the team. Gosh, what else did he do? He did so many different things, but primarily dance and directing musical theater.
Okay.
And so, yeah, like working under him, we actually won the Rising Star Award at the Durham Performing Arts Center in North Carolina, which is a really prestigious award for a high school. For the caliber of shows that we put on. And then the next year I went on to be a lead in Hairspray. And so this is, again, small little baby steps, but
Yeah, buddy.
it's a big part of, you know, what kind of helps you to like grow up into, I might actually be interested in like performing arts and entertainment.
And more than that, working with people that they're that talented, they're able to teach you all the tools that you might need for the future.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
So
That's
that was
amazing.
really cool. Yeah. And then with AMTC, like going hand in hand, basically they get you kind of set up and ready and, you know, prepared to actually submit to agencies. And then they have an event, I think it's like twice a year, and it's called Shine. And it's basically just all these different slots you can sign up for, where all of these different agencies, managers, just people who are professionals in the industry will come and scout talent. And so I really and truly, I feel like when I actually did the real deal, when I went to Shine, I wasn't really fully prepared for the caliber. And I also don't really think I was fully, not because of anyone there, but I think it was just like in my youthful ignorance. You know, I wasn't really taking it as seriously as I should be. So it was a good opportunity. How old were you at that time? I was like,
still in high school?
Yeah, I was right before 17. Yeah, I was very young. So once Shine was over, I didn't really get a lot of callbacks. I got a few, but it was a lot of like, let's just keep in touch, you know, and usually that's kind of code in the industry for like, oh, it's not going to work out.
Yeah.
You know? But then some people that I had worked with AMTC were like, girl, you can just like submit to agencies and keep submitting to them and just see what happens. And so that's what I did. And I started working with local photographers in my area to build like more of a body of work. And so before I knew it, I had submitted to an agency that was like, yeah, we want to sign you. Like, we'll bring you on. And it was called Three Blackbird Management. It was in North Carolina. And at this point, I was like 18, you know? And I was with them.
That's crazy. That's a hit
already. I know. I was so proud of myself. And my parents were very proud too. So I think I was signed with them between the ages of like 18 to 21. Mm-hmm. And then I actually, whenever I left from being signed with them, because, you know, you hit certain points in a contract where sometimes you'll have a contract that's like 3 years. Sometimes you'll have a contract that's 5 years. And then sometimes it gets extended just depending on circumstances and the relationship with your agent. But I hit a certain point where when I was 21, I was like, you know what? I actually just want to kind of try being freelance, because I wasn't fully certain. I was in college at the time, and I wasn't fully certain that, you know, I wanted to keep going with modeling, but that also was because I was down south. I wasn't really quite in the right industry for it, you know, like the right area for it. New York is known for a lot of things, and part of that is fashion.
Correct.
Yeah, so I kind of needed to be in an area like New York, LA, Paris, Milan, you know, somewhere where I could actually grow into my own.
Yeah. In that moment, you just mentioned that you were in college.
Yeah.
So what did you want for?
So I originally was going to go to college for theater.
I was going to ask if it was going to be the choice.
Yeah, yeah. So I was there for the first 2 years, and I was in the theater program. But something about the program just wasn't really fitting me personally.
Okay.
And it really didn't have anything to do with anyone in particular. It's just, you know, sometimes things just feel a little off, you know?
Yeah, you don't feel like they don't give you trust.
Like there's people who go by like purely logic and then purely emotion. I feel like I fall somewhere in between. But like
it's still you're making it make you a great decision.
Yeah, something about like, I don't know, just my intuitive nature. I just felt like it wasn't going to be the right fit for me. So I actually pivoted and I got a business degree. Awesome. But I still minored in theater. So I kept it in my back pocket, you know.
The thing is, like, sometimes, as you said, people, when they make a decision out of emotion, they tend to forget that sometimes getting into the point where your dreams that we were talking a little bit, it takes a while.
It does.
And having a background in business or having a background or marketing or any like sort of detach from the industry that you want to go through, it actually secures your way until your success for a bit.
agree.
because nobody says that you're not perfect for the job.
Right.
It's just that sometimes there are people who are better than you, and
It's true.
taking that responsibility, because that is responsibility for yourself,
Yeah.
and taking the chance and admitting that maybe something wrong might happen, taking a decision into that maybe I can choose something different, maybe to secure myself, just in case.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it was incredible. It was like amazing. How was the business school for you?
I liked it. I liked it a lot. So I got a business administration degree with a marketing concentration.
So
Yeah.
it's amazing. Yeah, everything is attached.
Yeah, so it worked out. It really did. And I feel like I've said this to other people before. So some people might listen to this and think it's like a broken record. But I do think you have to be able to kind of market yourself as a product, as a creative.
Yeah, of course.
And it's helpful to have a background in business so that you can kind of see all facets of what it is you're trying to do and accomplish. And whether or not it has any longevity, that's another big part of it.
Also, the fact that you know business, you can sometimes people they get scammed, and actually having a background of how actually things work,
Yeah.
it makes you think that either the project is worth it or not or
Agreed.
either you want to immerse yourself so much, or either you want to just step back. It gives you
Yeah,
like that
yeah.
experience to have a better eye, either the things are going to work.
Yeah. Well, and you also hear that being thrown around a lot, like in the industry, like, oh, it's just business. It's just business. And a lot of decisions are made kind of with that idea in mind, like, it's just business. We're just doing what works for us, which makes sense, But yeah, business school was good. It was really enjoyable. I got my bachelor's degree, and then that was kind of at the same threshold where I was like, do I want to continue to be signed with an agency, or do I want to try something new? So
Okay.
I just said, you know what, let me try freelance for a bit. And then whenever I feel like I'm ready to move into a market that's more saturated with fashion opportunities, then like we'll get there when it comes, kind of thing. I feel like that's a big part of my personality. I'm very just like ride the wave and see what happens.
No, yeah.
Yeah, it's I'm married, and my husband is very much the opposite. He's very like, let's make a plan, but I feel like we're such a good balance together.
Definitely. Sometimes making a plan,
Yeah.
it never gonna go your way, or either sometimes it's gonna go the way that you plan. Otherwise, it's just gonna be like completely disaster.
Yeah,
And
it's
just have
helpful
to
to
go.
kind of like toe the line though. So you have somebody who's like, okay, girl, like we gotta make a little bit of a plan here, and then I also kind of bring a little bit of adventure to his, planning and scheduling.
No, that's amazing. Having a person who balances you out. Sometimes being free and like taking decisions, and then think about like, yeah, I will think it later. It's
Yeah,
never.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not the best decision to do. I'm like your husband. I have to say, I'm more of a planner. I'm more of like,
yeah.
I need to kind of have a starting point where to go, and then in the case if something goes wrong, it goes wrong.
Yeah.
What can I do?
That's fair. That's fair. And it's also good that like you can accept that kind of thing because not everybody can. So
It's complicated.
It is.
It's complicated to admit
It
that
is.
something that you plan for so much time, or like you plan so on detail, it just doesn't work. It's
Yeah.
like, damn. But
sometimes it just doesn't, and that's okay. Yeah.
but sometimes the outcome is better than the one that you just planned. So you
It's
have
so
to
true.
admit the fact that either it can go better or can go worse. But you're still gonna learn.
It's so true. It's so accurate.
Going
But,
going deep into your fashion career. So you just turned 21. You just graduated from college.
Went
and
freelance.
Went freelance.
Yeah.
How
yeah.
was your projects at the moment? Because I think like freelancing, it can be tough.
It can be tough, but I will say I don't think anybody pushes me as hard as I push myself.
That's amazing.
I am
That's
very
incredible.
much like, okay, if you tell me no, within reason, but if you tell me no about something, I'm going to figure out a way to make it happen in like a beneficial regard for everybody involved. So I guess where that comes into play is like agencies in the past who have said no to me. I'm like, okay, that's fine. I'm going to move on and I'm still going to be successful, but I'm just not going to do it with you.
Yeah, of course. You lost the opportunity.
Yeah.
Let me go to another way.
Exactly. I'm like, let's try something else. But yeah, so freelance was really good. I was freelance actually for about four or 5 years. I was freelance for a really long time. And during that time, I actually feel like I did a lot of growing, especially towards the end.
Mm-hmm.
Prior to moving up here, I would actually just kind of connect with people on social media and I would book gigs that way. And then I would just fly back and forth. But then it got to a point where a lot of stuff in fashion is last minute. Yeah. So if you're booking like a red eye or like a last minute flight every single time.
It's gonna
Eventually,
be so expensive. It's
yeah,
gonna withdraw all your bank account
you're not
for
even
sure.
like breaking even. So it was like, okay, we kind of have to make a definitive decision here. Either I accept fewer gigs or we actually move up here. So my husband and I kind of started laying the groundwork for when we wanted to move up to New York. And then I had a few good friends in Jersey City who were like, girl, you need to move to Jersey City
Instead of New York.
Yeah. And so initially I kind of had like a little bit of a
Rejection.
Jersey. I
Yeah.
don't know about all that, you know. But they were like, no, just come and give it a go. And so we came up and looked at some apartments, and we really liked it. We were really blown away by like the economical value that we had.
It's a big factor, especially when New York, the apartments are tiny. It's New York. It's amazing. Literally, is the purpose that you use it for.
Yeah.
Just to go to sleep, stay there for a couple hours, maybe a couple of days, and that's it. And then you go back to the city. But Jersey is like it's just a different vibe.
It is. It is a very different vibe. You have to kind of be more like okay with it being a little bit more low key. Some people move here because they like the busy, constant, like packed streets, and it's definitely not that. But it's nice to again have the in between. I like it. But yeah, so we looked at some apartments, and there were a few that we put in our application for, and it just didn't pan out just because like it is very competitive to live up here. Just in general, it's very different from the South.
Jersey City in specific, I was trying to move there, but because the apartments either they take away like super fast, or either they get super expensive out of nowhere.
Yeah, it is very competitive. But you know, we just kind of like tried our luck a few different times, and then we got connected with a broker, and we were like, let's just keep trying, and then we finally secured an apartment.
Nice.
And my husband actually got a job up here, and that was something I was not really concerned about, but I want to make sure that in any case it's like mutually beneficial, because
you don't want to drag someone.
When you're in a relationship, you don't want to just be like, come do this thing that's my passion, and you know you're not going to have anything to do aside from whatever fun you make on your own.
That's amazing. That's destiny, girl. That's something that really that's amazing.
I agree. So it meant a lot to me that he could find something that was within his like wheelhouse that he was passionate about, and it ended up being a really good time frame, because the job he had been at previously, he had been there for almost a decade, so he was like, he was ready for something new as well.
That's amazing. That's really nice.
Yeah.
So everything came up into the perfect timing.
It did. So we moved up permanently, and then from there things just kind of like blossomed. You know.
Was this before the pandemic?
No. So this was actually, I'm going to shock you, this was last year.
Wow.
I know. I was commuting back and forth up until last year.
I really thought that you were longer here.
Everybody does. But I'm telling you, it's that like hustle mentality in me where I'm like, I'm gonna make things happen, no matter the barriers. In that case, being like a flight.
That's amazing. You're inspired. Those words are amazing. Okay. So you're literally just getting into to know like New York and everything that's related to it.
June will be 1 year. Wow. Isn't that crazy?
It's not even a year. Well, congratulations on everything that you have been through. But there's so how you feeling right now being so close to New York? Like, has it been faster, better? Have you ever like? Is there? I mean, you just nod. So I guess that it has been. You have had more gigs now that you're closer to the city.
It makes a big difference being able to pick up the phone. Like in this case, I am with an agency now, and whenever my agent's like, hey, you know, someone needs to see you in 30 minutes to an hour, obviously that's not doable if you have to jump on a plane.
Of course.
So it does open a lot more doors. And I also, prior to moving here, whenever I would come for Fashion Week or for a gig or a shoot, whatever it might have been, I would always kind of tell a little white lie to people that I lived here, because people don't really, and this is no shade to anyone, people don't pass you gigs in the same way if you're not physically here.
That's so true.
So I had to kind of make sure I was really on it with making sure that people were interested in bringing me onto projects and didn't feel like it was going to be a liability with me having to travel. So me being here makes a big difference, because now I can actually be honest, because I do live here.
It's because just thinking in the way of the agency or the photographer.
Yeah.
Sometimes when you contact the agency, if a model lives in another city or another state, they have to think about expenses like flight expenses,
Correct.
you know, or hotel, everything related to food. So just hiring someone who might not be the perfect choice, but is still kind of gonna accomplish the goal that you want.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can save a couple bucks for
It's
it.
so true. And sometimes that does create a barrier where someone's like, oh, I would have booked her, but I didn't realize she's going to have a place to sleep, food to eat, etc. So it does make a big difference, and it does open a lot more doors because now I can just step outside, go to the casting, and go home.
Go home.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And in terms of your life, did you decided to go full time on modeling, or are you going like something on the side?
Yeah. So I I do have a remote 9 to 5, and it's really nice because it lends like the flexibility, and I feel like kind of like what you and I had talked about previously. It's a big deal to have something that doesn't feel like, what's the word I'm looking for? Let me backtrack. Modeling is a lot like independent contracting. So a lot of times you're going to have really saturated seasons, you're going to have really dry seasons, and it's just really important to kind of have something to fill the gaps, and to make sure that
You have money.
yeah, pretty much. That's like what I'm trying to say without saying it. Yeah. Because like if you make $6,000 one month modeling, fire, sick, that's awesome. But
the
then
next
if
month-
the next month you only make $300, it's important to have something in between. But I always encourage people to kind of have multiple endeavors in the back of your mind, because while I love modeling alone, there are other things that I also enjoy as well. I enjoy knitting, so I do enjoy making clothes.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
yeah. I enjoy acting, like we talked about at the beginning of the podcast. So it's good to have multiple facets. And then for me, like my remote job is in marketing, so I've got marketing in my back pocket too. So it's good to have multiple things.
I think you became your own expertise on marketing, because as we talked before, like in terms of being a photographer, a content creator, a podcaster, a model, an actor, everything is about how do you put yourself out there in
It
the
is.
market. And the fact that you have this knowledge about how to put yourself in the best way, I think that's a perk that very little people in the modeling industry has, because it opens you so many doors as well.
Yeah.
Just because you know how to take a fully advantage of only one photo shoot.
Yeah.
It might have maybe 2 or 3 pictures, but if you're constant and you know exactly the strategies that might work to get attention from
Yeah.
others,
Yeah.
you're still gonna you're for sure you're gonna get another gig maybe next week.
Thank you.
It's very smart.
I feel like something I got really lucky with when I was modeling back in North Carolina and, commuting here for gigs. I did have some photographers that I was really close with, and they were always really open to me submitting the work that we created to magazines. And that was a big deal because that enables you to have some really solid publications under your belt as well.
Of course.
So, and it's a huge compliment for me that somebody would trust me with their work in that way, to be like, oh yeah, submit it. Just let's see what we get. But obviously we had guidelines, like certain types of magazines we were looking for. Because if you submit to like lower quality ones, it does kind of like damage the brand of the people involved. So you have to make sure that you're submitting to really like good quality publications, if that makes sense.
I think that's crazy. That's something that I really want to navigate in the future with a photographer, because I think that the way that handling the product one is done, because I feel like having the photo shoot ready, right? You as a photographer, you as a model, both of them, you're gonna have the product finished, so you can publish it on your own times. But I can see like some people maybe mishandling the pictures on like posting in like incorrect dates and just like complicating the
Well, something you
photographer.
have to remember is that people are people. People still make mistakes no matter what. So you
course.
have to make sure that if you do end up trusting someone with that process, that you're trusting the right people. So usually in that instance, people that you've developed a relationship with.
Of course,
Yeah.
because I mean I can see you just hiring like a random model, and unfortunately you have the connection on that day and you handle the pictures, and suddenly 5 minutes after the pictures are done, they're all over social media, and you're like
Oh my gosh, yeah, no, that would be
what the fuck.
someone's worst nightmare, I would imagine. Thankfully, I've never experienced that, but yeah, I'm sure there are photographers who have. Yeah.
In terms of the fashion week, I saw recently that you wearing it, like what is the deal to
Yeah.
be in there?
Okay, so I can tell you a little bit about Fashion Week. Fashion Week is like it's like the meat and potatoes of the industry for me. That's a time when I get to network with other
Of
people,
course.
generally really, really talented people. There's a lot of opportunities to go to parties, and I'm not really a big party girl, but that kind of lends itself to my success in a way because, like,
You must go.
yeah, I go, and even if I'm not really gonna like drink or party, I'm still gonna be able to meet people that I wouldn't have had the opportunity to otherwise. Because
Yeah, of course.
I've definitely had experiences where I've reached out to people like, hey, I want to work with you, or my agents reached out and been like, hey, like, I feel like Riley would be a good fit. And it's different when it's like, pen and paper, an email, whatever that may be, a submission versus like, hey, you can't escape me. I'm in your face. Let's talk about the opportunity. So, and I mean that again in like a positive, consensual kind of way.
No, no,
But
no.
you know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like, it's a big deal to shake someone's hand and to introduce yourself, and then they get to see how you are in real time versus having to guess, like, okay, does she actually look like that, or is that just photos? So it makes a big difference. But for me, Fashion Week is a great networking opportunity. It's also a great time to just like kind of reflect on the success that you've had in a way. And it does stay very, very busy, so there's not a whole lot of time for that. But I will say this past season was really an incredible season. In February, I walked for Zoe Whalen, and a lot of her work ended up in Vogue, which was really amazing.
Wow.
Like, it's a big deal to open, your laptop or your phone and be like, oh, Riley, here's some photos of us like in Vogue. And it's cool too because the photographers who shoot a lot of that work, you get to build relationships with them again. And if you've done enough shows that they've been a part of, they know who you are. And things like that go really far in the industry. So working with Zoe Whalen, working with Jane Wade, that was an amazing show. I don't know, did you watch any of the Met Gala?
I did, but not really thoroughly.
Okay, so Camila Cabello.
Okay.
She was beautiful at the Met Gala, as always. And she had like this ice bag that was like dripping because it was real ice as she was walking. And the bag was by Jane.
Oh wow.
So Jane's a pretty big deal. She's extremely talented, and she had so much incredible coverage on her show. Like
a nice bag that is
oh
melting.
my gosh,
That's
ice bag that was melting. So like because of that, it's an amazing opportunity to have a celebrity wear your garments, wear your bag, your accessories to something like that. And I'm sure, obviously I can't speak on her behalf, but I'm sure she was elated at that.
Of course.
But getting to work with people like that during Fashion Week is just very monumental for me personally. And again, like getting to be in things like Vogue, The Office, Hype Bay, Metal Magazine, Harper's Bazaar. I actually this past season was in Harper's Bazaar for the first time. And that was really meaningful to me, to be able to call my mom, thank you, and be like, Mom, I'm in Harper's Bazaar. And she's like, oh my God, where do I buy the magazine? And I'm like, well, it's the digital version, but it's okay. We can screenshot it.
Okay.
But it's still extremely meaningful. And yeah, it fills me with a lot of pride to be able to have the opportunity to do things like Fashion Week and to be able to meet really incredibly talented people. And yeah, I did quite a few shows. I also worked with Milk. I don't know if you've ever heard of them before.
Mm-mm.
They are probably one of the most inclusive brands I have ever worked with. Emma, the owner of Milk, she is just the most like genuine, welcoming individual, and she really wants her brand to be a lot about making sure that everyone feels like they have a place in fashion, and obviously this is not speaking from her words, but I will say sometimes it can be difficult to find your place in the fashion industry. And
I was literally Googling through a little bit about how fashion and modeling in general can be super tough for everybody.
It can be.
And,
You have to have a very thick skin.
Yeah.
You have to be used to people saying no. And
the comments,
okay.
the comments that people they may say is not. I'll try to think in a positive way, but some people they don't ever. Most of them they don't mean it in a positive way, but it's just those critics. It's part of the job.
Yeah.
It's part of what you do.
It is, and you have to remember, especially like for younger models, the reason that someone might really not like you is a reason that someone else is absolutely going to adore you and be like, her look has to be in my collection, it has to be in my magazine, my commercial, what have you. So you just have to kind of focus on the fact that whatever's not for one person is for another person.
Correct.
Yeah.
What was the name again? Milk.
Milk. Yeah, it's
Okay.
MELKE.
Okay, I'm gonna put something right here.
Yeah,
all
please
the
do.
names that you just said, I'm gonna try to implement as much as I can into the
It's
video.
just like a handful, but very, very talented, incredible designers. So I feel very elated and very grateful. I also worked with Fern, New York. She creates this beautiful, like French, like themed lingerie, and it's very stunning. Like think lacy, classy, almost like 1920s inspired.
Okay, I got you.
Really beautiful work. So yeah, a lot of talented designers, and yeah, that's one of my favorite parts of the year.
I just feel like Fashion Week. Whenever Fashion Week comes into the city, everybody, most of my friends, they go crazy. At least the people they are into they're into the fashion industry.
Yeah.
I can see them really stressed out and like things are moving around, projects and everything are just coming up just for that specifically.
They
And that's
do.
beautiful. I feel that that's amazing how many people are involved in that industry. Just I don't try to make it small but for a picture. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
it's so amazing how the process, how big it is just to capture only one pixel. You know,
Isn't that
only one
wild?
person.
Isn't
It's
that
crazy.
wild? But you never know where that's going to land.
Exactly.
And that's the beauty of Fashion Week.
Yes.
And like you never know who you're going to get the opportunity to work
To meet,
with.
yes, definitely. I feel like networking, it's 99% of the work.
It is.
Because
it really is.
working with, as you said when you started, with the local photographers and everything, you never know where they're gonna be in the future.
You have no idea. And I always tell anyone this. It's kind of a no-brainer, but it's something that can be easy to forget when, sometimes if someone shows up late to a shoot or they edit the photos in a way that, you don't love. It's easy to kind of have like an abrasiveness, but just be nice to everybody because you never know where somebody's going to end up. You never know where you're going to end up, so just be nice.
There's no need.
Yeah.
I feel like there's no need to be rude or just to. If you have an opinion about something, just be mature enough to express it in a decent way.
And you
That's all.
can be respectful and still say
course.
you don't like something. So.
Yeah, definitely. The problem is I don't know how people they're gonna get that, but if they have top skin, at least they're gonna be like, oh, maybe something that from the outside they can see, and maybe something that I have to do better. But
yeah.
never be rude. I think every connection that you are able to get from any type of experience, if you put yourself in the best possible way, you're gonna be able to create experience in the future that you never know. Like this, like we literally met for one day. It was like
We
6
did.
hours
We did.
that we had a couple laps. It was like very professional. I was like trying to help Delta in the way.
It was a very go day as well.
It was.
Yeah,
It was.
It really was.
It was really not stressful, but it was a lot of things that we had to do in a very minimal time.
Very high octane.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it's still like this because of that opportunity is what we are able to create this today. So, for example, one of the stories that I'm gonna try my best to bring this guy into my podcast, but he was the photographer of quinceañeras in my city.
Oh my gosh.
And he has started to go into parties of high schoolers or parties in the university in my city in Ecuador. This is like, imagine we are maybe 500,000 population in my city, so it's a very small town.
Where are you from originally?
Ecuador.
Ecuador.
So
I
very
didn't
in
know
this.
that.
Yeah.
See, that's how new we are at knowing each other.
Literally. And this guy, through the years, he started to go into like better parties, started to take better picture of people going for weddings. After 10 years of career, now he is, I don't know if you know J Balvin, but he's a very like,
Maybe. I
uh,
think I know people through their Instagram handles. How bad is that?
it's okay. He has photographed Carol G or like
Okay.
Camilo Cabello or Jason Mars,
Okay.
like very incredible artists in 10 years. And I was his assistant for maybe like 5 or 6 photo shoots that we had in like a very long time ago. I was a kid at the moment, but it was
Still
very
a very
nice.
big deal.
Yeah, of
And it
course.
really lends itself to show like you never know where somebody is gonna end up.
Exactly. So that's the point of just being nice with people.
Yeah.
That's all. You
It's so accurate.
yeah.
Yeah.
Something that I wanted to ask you a lot is how in terms of people who are trying to get into the industry.
Yeah.
2024 or the years that they're coming up, a lot of technology and a lot of connection has been lost.
Sure.
And the fact that now we are able to communicate with each other in a more instantaneous way, and like it opens like so many doors, but at the same time like people they tend to be a little bit like less trusty, they don't tend to trust.
Sure,
What
sure.
do you think it would be the advice that you can tell to someone who wants to pursue modeling
Yeah.
and wants to get like their dream done but they don't know how to do it?
I would say just put yourself out there and really work on making connections with other people. So, like you mentioned, there's more technology than ever before, and it does kind of change the landscape of how we interact, but you can also really use that to your advantage. If you can create like a really strong body of work, or maybe even if you don't have that body of work yet, you can always reach out to people and be like, hey, I'm trying to grow. I see that you like to work on these types of projects. I'm also trying to work on these types of projects. And even if you have literally zero body of work to show them, the worst that can happen is they say no. And then you just try to talk to somebody else. So I would say start there. And then once you have a small body of work, even if it's just like a few images, like 5 or 6 really good images, that can really help you with trying to get signed to an agency if that's your goal. And also, there are some agencies where you can just get some really good digitals, which digitals are just really basic photos of a model with little to no, in most cases, no makeup, really simple clothing that's fitted to the body.
Mhm.
And a lot of times you can pay a photographer like, I don't know, 100, 200, depending on their rate, to take some basic digitals of you. And you can just submit those alone to agencies. So you don't always have to have a body of work, but I feel like it personally helps. But if you are someone who's like a lover of fashion, a lover of modeling, and you just really don't know what kind of eye to have for that kind of work, obviously not an insult, but it is one of those things where it's like, know yourself, you can definitely just go the route of getting the digitals taken and submit to agencies. But really, at the end of the day, just trying to meet people and trying to talk to people about what you want to do will really help you, because you never know who's going to be like, oh, I actually wanted to try working on that type of project as well. I've never done that before. And then before you know it, you have multiple people collaborating on a body of work, and it's just fun.
That's true.
Yeah.
I think networking is something that we discuss a lot in this one, and especially it's I think is the most important thing in not just this industry but in general.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I think we're gonna put things. I think we're gonna finish the
Sure.
podcast here. I
Sure. Of
really
course.
appreciated all the time that you spent here. I really am super happy with how things went.
Oh,
And
good. It was my
again,
pleasure. This is so much
no,
fun.
I truly appreciate you coming down here, and I really hope and expect you to be awesome like you always are. I
Oh,
know
thank
you're gonna
you.
be amazing in the future, and
Thank
let's see if
you.
Delta. I think he's coming up with something new, and hopefully he's gonna bring you back.
Oh, I would love to. I would love to. Also,
Uh,
stay tuned because I've got some really big projects coming out. So, like, hold on to your seat.
I'm gonna leave all her social media just right here, and on the bottom of the description of the video, because it's gonna go for Spotify and YouTube.
Amazing.
So in both of them, they're gonna have the links and everything, so people they can go to you and share the love that you have for your pictures, because her Instagram is just crazy.
Oh my gosh.
Right
Thank
now,
you.
right now, I was gonna just go scrolling like through her Instagram page, and it's just stunning. I swear to God,
Thank you.
the one that
Thank
you
you so
have
much.
attached with Vogue, or even the one I'm proud of my friend, and proud of the one that we did, but just that one, it's absolutely crazy with the bag that you put on.
With Glam Cult.
Yes,
Yeah. Yeah.
that was amazing. I didn't know where the idea came from, but I was so inspired when I saw the finishing product. I was like, wow.
I literally think like the thing that was over my head was supposed to protect your face from transferring makeup to clothing.
Yes.
Then we were like, let's just see what it looks like. Let's just try.
And it ended up
It's
being
just
crazy. It was the final touch that we needed, really. But anyways, thank you guys again for tuning in. I really hope that everybody liked. And I'll see you in the next episode of this podcast. Thank you, Riley.
Thank you so much. Can I shake your hand?
Yes.